Attention passengers, if you look to your right, you'll see beautiful views of Portland, Oregon. And if you look to your left, you'll see a massive hole in the side of the plane. Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 was forced to make an emergency landing after a portion of the fuselage exploded last Friday, leaving a huge chunk of the plane missing. Here's that shocking video.
This wasn't even the emergency door. We're at the end of the plane, so the emergency door is right there. It was just a piece of the plane.
But new information coming to light reveals Alaska Airlines was aware of the issue with the plane and continued to fly it anyway, and are putting the company in some hot water. The Associated Press reports warning lights were triggered on 3 flights, including each of the 2 days before the brand new Boeing 737 MAX 9 suffered a terrifying fuselage blowout on Friday night. Jennifer Homendy, chair of the National Transportation Safety Board, said maintenance crews checked the plane and cleared it to fly, but the airline decided not to use it for the long route to Hawaii over water so that it could return very quickly to an airport if the warning light reappeared. Following an investigation by United Airlines into its fleet of 737 MAX 9 jets, the airline determined it had found a number of loose bolts that could have caused parts of the plane to rip off. The FAA has grounded several of the aircraft operated in the country, both by American and foreign airlines. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg had little to say, simply tweeting, "Safety will always be the top priority for our department and for the FAA." Administrator Whitaker has acted to order these aircraft grounded pending the inspections necessary to ensure that they are safe to operate.
You know what happened to this plane? I know. Desmond forgot to enter 48, 15, 16, 23, 42 on the computer in the hatch. And you don't know what that reference is
It's a lost thing.
People watching.
Okay. All right. Now, a lot of people have been attributing blame all over the place. First, we should note that in some kind of a miracle, apparently the 2 people who were supposed to be sitting in the seats right next to the portion of the plane that had blown off missed their flight, weren't on the flight.
That's also some Lost kind of thing there.
Final Destination is the movie
right.
that people were alluding to, that, you know, there but by the grace of God. Although it's
Jacob
not clear if you had your seatbelt buckled, whether or not. I got to say, I always have my seatbelt buckled because I'm always afraid of one of these eventualities. I'm not going to be sucked out into the vacuum of space. It's buckled. It's cinched. I'm locked in. If the plane survives, I'm surviving too.
I think Jacob warned them.
But there have also been people, David Sirota at The Lever wrote a really interesting rundown of some of these long-standing systemic and regulatory issues, problems that have been going on with the airlines. Remember, this is not Pete Buttigieg's first airline scandal. Last Christmas, before the most recent one, we saw the largest single grounding of flights, I believe, in American history that largely got swept under the radar. But here's what The Lever has to say about this. They say, they argue that the Federal Aviation Administration has failed to properly regulate companies like Spirit, a budget airline, which was given $75 million in a public subsidy from Pete Buttigieg's transportation department in 2021, despite reporting more than $5 billion in revenues in 2022. And it builds itself as one of the largest manufacturers of aerostructures for these commercial planes. The FAA's chronic, systemic, and long-time funding gap is a key problem in having the staffing, resources, and travel budgets to provide proper oversight, said William McGee, a senior fellow for aviation and travel at the American Economic Liberties Project. And he went on to say that ultimately the FAA has failed to provide adequate policing of outsourced work. And so they go on to report on the fact that so many of these companies make these small constituent parts and are not responsible for the whole, and that a lack of regulation on those parts and on the airline industry altogether, and real funding cuts that are happening here, where these airlines are investing in stock buybacks, distributions to their shareholders, instead of investing in improvements to the machinery and to staffing in the company, are attributable to some of these problems that we've seen over the last few years.
I guess, but there's no evidence that it's undermined any safety. The last...
Did we not look at the same video of a plane with a hole in the side of it?
The last fatal plane, I just looked it up, I didn't know. The last plane fatality was in 2009. We haven't had a plane crash in 20 years.
So how about you go ahead and book these 737 flights, and the rest of us can...
It's the safest way to travel.
But that's not the issue, Robby. The issue isn't whether it's the safest way to travel.
I'm saying it hasn't gotten any less safe.
It's whether... Robby, if someone had been sitting in those seats unsecured, they could have died. So if your position is that it's not a big deal until someone literally dies and that we shouldn't address this problem until a plane is actually crashing into the ground and hundreds of lives are lost, then that's a position to take. I think most people who want to make sure that plane travel is as safe as it can be, not just safer than a car.
I think people want to argue that there needs vast more regulation that make the industry's lives a greater headache and subjects them to more scrutiny and all of that, which will end up actually making plane travel even more exorbitantly expensive than it's becoming.
No, that's not true.
Then it will be.
The criticism here.
Let me finish. Would have to argue that there's been some actual decline in safety standards, and there is no statistical decline.
So the libertarian is saying there's no statistical decline in safety standards, so don't look at the hole on your side of the plane.
Zero. A fatal accident rate of 0.
You've been so clear. Stand in that position. You're owning it. Until someone falls out the hole in the plane, don't look at this hole in the side of the plane. But for the rest of us, to be clear, the critique is that airlines are enormously profitable, and instead of investing in the updates to their scheduling and booking technology, which was the cause of all of the people, millions of people across the country who had their travel disrupted last Christmas, and is also the cause, arguably, of some of the technical failings in these planes that are causing these safety concerns. The issue is not that there's not enough money. The issue is that the airlines are not investing in actually buying the best materials, paying staff to do the necessary oversight, and investing in updating their own technology.
Get another word in, please.
That instead that they are choosing to disperse profits to their shareholders instead of ensuring your safety.
So I oppose, obviously, giving any of the subsidies we've given to the airline industries. I said they were a bad idea at the time, so I wouldn't have done any of that. The number one reform that was inflicted on the industry was doubling the amount of hours pilots have to train in order to be licensed as pilots, is twice as many hours as in Europe, which makes it very difficult to hire the requisite staff to fly enough planes, and that is making everything more expensive and more inefficient. Again, there's been no safety trade-off because the planes are perfectly 100% safe, and I don't love regulation just for the sake of regulation, but I don't like corporate welfare either, so we'll agree on that aspect of it.
Here's just a little bit more reporting from The Lever, because this is not just an isolated incident with these planes. They go on to write, last week's high-altitude debacle, which forced an Alaska Airlines 373 MAX 9's emergency landing in Portland, came just a few years after Spirit was named in an FAA action against Boeing. In 2019 and 2020, the agency alleged that Spirit delivered parts to Boeing that did not comply with safety standards, then proposed that Boeing accept the parts as delivered, and Boeing subsequently presented the parts as ready for airworthiness certification on hundreds of aircraft. So I think this investigation, this story isn't going anywhere anytime soon. It is enormously costly for these companies to have to ground planes. These are new planes, mind you, that they recently paid millions of dollars for that aren't in circulation because of these real safety concerns, not to mention the people traveling that day certainly didn't get to their destination on time as they were forced to land prematurely to deal with the gaping hole in the side of the craft.
I said what I said. That does it for us for today. Tomorrow on Rising, it'll be a new day. We will be back. However, we are unfortunately so sadly losing a critical member of our staff, our wonderful executive producer, Gabriella Schulte. There's some photos of us together, including in our Halloween costumes. In the left, don't laugh at us. She's leaving to pursue a wonderful opportunity. She has been indispensable to Rising's successes for as long as I've been here for the last 2 years. And we are heartbroken to see her leave, although we remain very good friends with her and we expect to see her all the time. If you've been a longtime viewer of the show and have appreciated the content, she has more to do with it than anybody else.
Truly.
So please wish her well as we do so too.
She's truly the best. You will be missed, Gabby, so much. Come back tomorrow, though. We're going to soldier on despite having lost such an important member of this team. Take care of yourselves.
Bye-bye.